Good afternoon. I'm Lisa Broom with the CBC News Break. As many Barbadians seek to ensure that their income tax returns are filed before the deadline this month end, there's word that outstanding tax refunds are actively being paid. It's coming from Finance Minister Chris Sinclair, who says more than $100 million in tax refunds have been paid out since last year.
The income tax returns continue to be paid at pace. I don't think people really understand that you can have in excess of 50,000 to pay out, and tens of millions of dollars. It can go as high as, in any given year, 60, 70, sometimes $80 million. And that's on income tax alone. That's not value-added tax or corporation tax or anything else. Between February last year and April last year and February this year, we paid out, BRA paid out about $170 million in income tax, in tax returns, refunds.
Mr. Sinclair said it's not a case of government having the money and not wanting to pay it out, and explained that the process is primarily revenue driven.
There's no separate expenditure item that is called refunds. It is based on how much money is taken in terms of revenue, and then you take out what has to be returned, and it is returned through the refund process. So that's how it works. So it is really a cash flow issue, money coming in, money going out. If the cash flow is tight, for whatever reasons, government's debt payments, government social safety net programs, certain strategic operations in the society, such as transport, sanitation, and so forth and so on, then that has an influence or an impact on how much money and how quickly those returns are paid out.
The Barbados Water Authority is still working out how to compensate customers who are demanding rebates due to water outages. For several months, many residents in affected areas have complained that they were still being billed for the service during those periods. Corporate Communications Specialist Joyanne Haig is telling those who were still receiving bills to bring them to the BWA. Ms. Haig says the authority has not decided how to deal with the problem across the board, so they are addressing it on an individual basis.
If you have agreements with the bill, you do come into the authority and we can address the matter there. But Lisa, I could also tell you that when you do get back the water, a lot of the times we actually using the water because your demands are higher because you're filling more reciprocals from the tap, you got more laundry to do, you have more dishes to wash and so on. So, but again, you know, that discussion, well, you can come into the authority and the persons in charge of that department, together with the board and the management, will make some decisions, individual decisions.
In the wake of recent arrests of crop thieves, the Ministry of Agriculture and Police have launched another response to this type of crime. They've established a predial larceny hotline. The number is 428-3333 and will be operational 24 hours a day. In the last 2 weeks, a number of crop thieves were sentenced to jail time, in one case up to 2 years. This after pleading guilty in court to stealing sweet potatoes belonging to Armagh Farms. The ministry is also distributing certificates of purchase of agricultural produce or livestock to all farmers with valid identification cards. These certificates are available free of charge from the ministry's Planning and Communications Unit at Graham Hall in Christchurch. There is a call for more local research to be done on mental health. This time, it's in the workplace.
The call for more research comes from General Secretary of the Barbados Workers Union, Tony Moore. She was speaking during a health and safety in the workplace workshop. Ms. Moore believes the trying economic times have caused mental stress for hundreds of workers.
Over the past 3 years, our workforce has been traumatized by changes such as mergers, closures, layoffs, threats of layoffs, which have caused psychological stress and strain for hundreds of workers.
Ms. Moore says there is a cost attached to poor health in the workplace, giving examples in other countries.
The combined cost of sickness absence, non-employment, effects of unpaid work, and output losses in Britain is £26 billion a year.
Minister of Labour, Dr. Esther Bayer-Suku, says there is legislation in place to help workers, but it only solves part of the problem.
In addition, we should soon have the Sexual Harassment Bill and the Employment Prevention of Discrimination Bill. So we do have a legislative framework to ensure that the workplace is safer, but legislation can only be a part of the solution. Certainly, we have seen that even with the passage of this legislation, there are still workplaces that do not conform to what the legislation prescribes.
The Labour Minister believes managers need to become more informed about mental health.
Managers with adequate training about mental health challenges are better able to identify those individuals who are adversely affected by workplace stress and perhaps even other stress, and the ways in which those individuals can be supported. Managers and supervisors should, of course, have core competencies that include empathy, integrity, maintaining confidentiality.
The aim of the workshop is to help develop a national wellness policy.
Attorney General Adriel Brathwaite has called on regional governments to pledge more financial support for CDEMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency. He says it's the only way to ensure that the agency has the resources for mitigation efforts and to respond when the need arises. The AG was speaking in his capacity as the chair of the Council of Ministers with responsibility for CDEMA as the agency launched its 25th anniversary celebrations at its headquarters in Lower Estate. But he also stressed the need for CDEMA to be more self-financed.
We cannot depend on our partners, on our international partners. And I say all the time that in fact, that whilst we're grateful for the work that many of our partners have done with us, many of the initiatives and for the financial contributions, we realize that in fact that their priorities for various reasons have changed and will continue to change. And therefore, as a region, we need to be more self-reliant, and CDEMA is but one example of a regional institution that requires us to take ownership and ensure that it is able to discharge its mandate.
CDEMA's Executive Director Ronald Jackson has praised Barbados and regional governments for supporting the agency, but going forward, he wants to see the private sector coming on board.
Our participating states have implemented or are in the process of implementing disaster risk management legislation. We have also been able to involve the key economic sectors in disaster programming, primarily agriculture, tourism, civil society, the education sector, the physical planning and environment sector, and the finance and economic sector. There is also growing private sector interest and engagement, and we're hoping that over the next year we will see marked improvement in this particular engagement.
We'll have regional and international news after this break. Stay with us.